3 spine-chilling true horror tales, sinister secrets unveiled on a rainy, haunted night. The storm raged outside, a symphony of chaos that turned the quiet suburb of Willow Creek into a stage for horror. Sarah, a determined single mother in her mid-30s, held her breath as she cuddled her 2 young children, Emily and Jacob, in the living room. Their home, once a sanctuary, felt more like a cage as the relentless rain drummed against the windows, the howling wind feeding on their fears. With popcorn bowls in hand, they settled in for family movie night, laughter mingling with the rumble of distant thunder. Little did they know that something sinister lurked just beyond their cozy walls. As the clock ticked toward midnight, an unsettling shift hung in the air. The once comforting glow of the TV screen cast eerie shadows, stretching ominously as if alive. It started with whispers, barely audible, as if something shifted in the fabric of reality outside. Sarah's heart raced as she dismissed the creeping dread, reminding herself it was just the storm. But when the lights began to flicker, first gently, then violently, a sense of foreboding lodged deep in her chest. As she tried to shake off her rising anxiety, she felt an unshakable chill, and the children snuggled closer. Just then, a loud scratch echoed from the attic, making Sarah's skin prickle. It couldn't be anything. Could it? But safety felt like an illusion, desperately clinging to the corners of her mind. She gripped the arm of the couch, the tension rising as her urge to investigate morphed into a compulsion. With a deep breath, she grabbed a flashlight and made her way up the creaking staircase, her heart pounding like thunder. The attic was dark, and the air felt thick with secrets. Amidst her late father's vintage movie collection stacked in dusty boxes, she stumbled across a pile of aged newspapers crammed behind wooden beams. An article caught her eye, its headline shouting about the mysterious disappearances attributed to none other than Mr. Thompson, their seemingly innocent neighbor. Her hand trembled as she read about the smiles hiding grim darkness. Panic gripped her. Could the threat be living right across the street? Suddenly, the power cut out completely, plunging them into suffocating darkness. "Mom?" Frightened whispers tumbled from Emily, her small hand gripping Jacob's tightly. Sarah's grip on the flashlight turned white-knuckled. The beam quivered as she caught sight of shadows dancing menacingly across the walls. A roar of rain combined with disturbed whispers filled the air outside, blurring the line between storm and hysteria. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. Gathering what was left of her courage, Sarah knew they had to escape the house, a place that felt like a trap now. She grabbed the children's raincoats, each motion filled with urgency as her heartbeat echoed in her ears. When they stepped outside, the rain pelted down like icy needles, soaking them instantly. The streets transformed from familiar to alien territory, shadows flickering with every bolt of lightning. Each footstep sounded like a rear guard against the lurking darkness, but dread bloomed in her gut. Trees swayed ominously in the wind, and every rustle in the shadows felt like an unseen threat. As they rushed through the streets, Sarah caught glimpses of sinister figures illuminated only by flashes of lightning. Were they just figments of her imagination, or was she stepping into a nightmare? And then, she felt them eyes, watching from the oppressive dark. The realization struck like a bolt of thunder. Mr. Thompson wasn't just a helpful neighbor but a dark observer hidden in the safety of Willow Creek. As the whispers escalated, a chilling urge to run overtook her, but where would they go? The storm roared, and dreadful questions hung heavy in the air. Were they the hunted tonight, and would they ever escape the twisted truth lurking just beyond their doors? The wind howled like a wounded animal as Sarah led her children farther into the storm, the air thick with fear and the taste of rain. Each step felt heavier than the last, fear clawing at her stomach. She glanced back, half expecting to see Mr. Thompson looming in the shadows, watching. But there was only darkness. "Mom, I don't want to be outside," Jacob whimpered, pulling at her arm. His little voice broke through the howling weather, laced with desperation. Emily stood close, shivering, eyes wide with fright as thunder rumbled overhead. "Just a little further," she urged, her voice shaky but firm. "We need to find somewhere safe." But the words tasted like lies. She had no idea where safe was anymore. As they turned down a dimly lit alley, the rain suddenly sheared off, leaving a haunting stillness in its wake. The world felt eerily calm, as if holding its breath. Sarah squinted into the darkness ahead, her heart pounding with each echoing footstep. Then she saw something, a light flickering at the end of the alley. Hope surged in her chest, but it was quickly overshadowed by dread. "Mom, I think we should go back," Emily's voice cracked. "No. We can't go back," Sarah snapped, instantly regretting the volume. The shadows felt alive around them, slinking ever closer. Cautiously, they approached the flicker, revealing an old convenience store with boarded-up windows, yet a light danced inside. Its neon open sign buzzed erratically, casting an unsettling glow. Maybe there were others inside. Maybe this was a refuge. As Sarah pushed the door open, a wave of stale air hit her like a brick wall. The place was empty, the shelves lined with dust and forgotten goods. A chill crawled across her skin, but she shook it off, stepping inside. "Stay close, kids," she whispered, her voice barely piercing the suffocating silence. With every step, the floorboards creaked as if protesting her intrusion. The air felt electric, charged with something ominous. "Mom," Jacob tugged on her shirt, his face pale. "What's that?" He pointed toward the back of the store. Shadows pooled in the corners, coiling like serpents, but before she could respond, the lights flickered again, plunging them into near-complete darkness. Sarah's heart raced. "Everyone, stay quiet," she urged, moving back towards the door. A loud crash echoed from the stockroom, and her breath hitched as a cold sweat broke out on her brow. "Mom! I'm scared," Jacob whined, his small voice trembling. "I know, baby. I know," she reassured him, though fear coiled tighter around her throat. "We need to leave. Now." Just as they turned to flee, a figure emerged from the shadows, a large man, silhouetted against the flickering light, blocking the only exit. Sarah squinted to see his face, but shadows swallowed it whole. Cold dread rolled through her veins. It was him. "Mr. Thompson. Lost, are we?" His voice dripped with a false kindness that sent shivers down her spine. Sarah's mind raced. She had to protect her children. "Let us go. We won't tell anyone anything." Laughter bubbled up from the darkness, deep and chilling. "Oh, but you already know too much." In that moment, Emily's grip on her hand tightened, and Jacob pressed against her leg, wide eyes staring at the looming threat. The storm outside returned with a vengeance, pounding against the roof, drowning their muffled cries. "Run!" Sarah screamed, her protective instincts kicking in. She tore towards the back of the store, her heart hammering, adrenaline coursing through her veins. But as she glanced back, Mr. Thompson had vanished, leaving them in the unbearable void. The exit was a metaphorical abyss. With blurred vision, she could only catch the fleeting shadows of her surroundings. What now? Where was he? "Mom, where did he go?" Jacob's voice shook. "What if he follows us?" Emily whispered, terror lodging in her throat. They dashed toward a door that creaked ominously as they pushed it open, revealing a dark alley behind the store. The storm still raged, but it felt like their only choice. As they stepped out into the downpour, Sarah felt the eyes on her again. Watching, waiting. The looming terror struck her like lightning. "Run! To the car!" But as she turned to guide them away, something lunged from the shadow, a flash of darkness that seemed to swallow the weather whole. And just like that, the ground shook underfoot, reality twisted, and Sarah screamed into the tempest. But would anyone hear her cries in the night? What awaited them in the storm was far more terrifying than the truth of Mr. Thompson. Sarah felt a powerful grip around her ankle, something cold and unyielding. Panic surged as she stumbled, her children's terrified faces reflecting back at her, wide and dark against the sheets of rain. She yanked her foot free, heart pounding like a drum in her chest. The storm seemed to rumble louder, feeding off her fear. "Go! Just run!" she screamed, pushing Jacob and Emily toward the car parked at the edge of the alley. The old vehicle looked like a flimsy shelter amidst the rising tide of terror. She darted after them, breath coming in frantic gulps. With each step towards the car, she could feel it behind her, an undeniable presence. Mr. Thompson had melted into the shadows, but she sensed he wasn't far. Goosebumps prickled her skin, and she risked a quick glance over her shoulder. The alley gave way to a void, shadows stretching and shifting, but no Mr. Thompson. Where could he have possibly gone? "Mom, hurry!" Emily's sharp voice cut through the chaos. They reached the car, rain pounding down as Sarah fumbled with the key against the slick surface. The bolt clicked, but the lock refused to engage. She glanced back. The darkness at the alley's mouth seemed to pulse, as if breathing, thick and hungry. "Jacob, get in!" she shouted, her voice rising above the storm. Jacob scrambled into the back seat while Emily fidgeted at the door, her wide eyes scanning their surroundings. "Mom, I feel something." Sarah's heart raced as she struggled to keep her composure. "Just get in, sweetie." Finally, the door swung open and Emily climbed in. Sarah dove into the driver's seat, slamming the door shut with a force that echoed like a thunderclap. She turned the key, praying for the engine to roar to life. It turned sluggishly, sputtering in the face of the storm's rage. The lights flickered weakly, illuminating the walls of the alley as the rain hammered down like a war drum. Come on," she whispered through clenched teeth. Time stretched, heavy as the suffocating moisture in the air. The engine let out a reluctant growl and she pressed down on the gas, the tires screeching against the pavement. Just as she steered into the alley, a monstrous shadow pierced the heavy downpour behind them. "Look out!" yelled Emily, pointing in horror. Sarah's heart paused. There he was, Mr. Thompson, emerging from the rain as if he had been conjured from nightmares. His eyes glinted with a malicious gleam, his mouth twisted into a grin that twisted her stomach into knots. "Stop!" he roared, a feral howl that sliced through the storm. She slammed on the brakes. The world outside blurred as adrenaline surged, painting everything around her in frantic strokes of fear. Her mind raced. She could either run him over or escape into the night. Jacob's breathing quickened in the back seat. "Mom!" he cried, panicking. "Hold on!" she shouted back, turning the wheel hard. The car swung sideways, tires skidding on slick asphalt as adrenaline coursed through her veins. Right then, as she pulled away, her eyes caught a flicker of something beyond Mr. Thompson. It was a figure behind him, dimly illuminated. "Please," it whispered, a fragile voice cracking through the air. Confusion twisted inside her. Who was that? Did she dare take a second to look? Without knowing for sure, she pressed the pedal harder, the tires eventually gaining traction as the car jolted forward, but the last image in her mind was of the new, ghostly figure. It was looking straight at her. A plea echoed, but through the roar of rain and the engine, she couldn't make out the words. The alley fell behind them, but the storm pressed closer, like a predator ready to strike. She glanced in the rearview mirror. Mr. Thompson was still there, but the unsettling stranger wasn't. The road twisted beneath her tires, uncertainty growing in her chest. "Did you see that?" Emily asked, her voice shaking. "Just keep your eyes ahead." Sarah snapped, trying to mask her own fear, but dread flooded her heart and mind. What had just happened? Who was that? She couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister lurked, waiting for them in the darkness ahead. The road forked. One path led to town, the other toward the woods. Which way, Mom? Jacob quivered. With both options shrouded in darkness, Sarah could feel the shadows closing in tighter, a malevolent force edging closer. Either way, we might not escape, she muttered, hands tense on the steering wheel. The gaslight flashed low, time was running out, the woods whispered promises of isolation. Which path would lead to salvation? Or was another horror waiting just beyond the trees? Mom, please, Jacob shivered, his eyes darting from the road to Sarah's face, searching for reassurance she couldn't give. Sarah's grip tightened on the wheel, the plastic cold against her clammy palms. We could take the woods, she said, her voice a waver of uncertainty born from instinct. They'll be harder to find us in there. But it's dark and creepy. Emily chimed in, peeking through the rain-speckled window, her small voice nearly lost to the sound of the storm. What if there are bears or something worse? The weight of their fear pressed down on her, and Sarah forced herself to swallow it. We need to hide, their view might be blocked by the trees. With a heavy heart, she turned the car into the wooded path, the engine struggling against the soggy ground. The branches closed in around them like grasping fingers, shadows flickering and dancing across her windshield. Her breath quickened as the atmosphere thickened with tension. She drove deeper into the darkness, with only the occasional flash of lightning revealing twisted branches that resembled tortured souls reaching for salvation. Faint whispers seemed to tumble through the air, too low to be understood, but chilling enough to raise the hair on the back of her neck. Mom, Jacob murmured, what if he finds us? That's why we're in here, she asserted sharply, trying to instill courage, though her own heart pounded against her ribcage like my desperate drum. Suddenly, out of nowhere, the engine coughed, sputtered, and then fell silent. The headlights flickered, dimming to nothing, like candles snuffed out in the dark. A frantic beat began to thrum in her ears. They were lost here in the deep woods, with unknown horrors closing in. Stay close, she whispered to her children, reaching back to grasp Jacob's hand, clutching it tight. Emily whimpered softly beside him. The rain fell in sheets, merging with the low rustle of the leaves and the cracks of thunder. A squelching sound beyond the car made her stiffen. Sarah turned her head toward the sound, a gnarled tree limb scraping against the roof. Then she heard it, a low, scratchy voice whispering, "Help me please." Panic surged. What was that? Emily gasped, fear pouring from her small form as she pressed deeper into Jacob. Their silence was deafening, filled only with the rhythmic pitter-patter of rain. In the darkness, the voice continued its torment, intertwining with the harsh echo of thunder. Each plea sent icy shivers down Sarah's spine, the sudden realization that they weren't alone overwhelming her sense of safety. She glanced out of the window, breath held, but saw nothing. Just the oppressive curtain of rain. "Stay quiet," she hissed, her voice trembling. "Don't answer." And yet, just as swiftly as it started, the voice stopped, leaving an oppressive silence that felt thicker than the rain itself. Then it hit her, the air felt wrong, stagnant, thick as sorrow. This was a haunted place. The shadows around them felt alive, shifting, teasing at the edges of her mind. And she knew then, without doubt, that stretching far beyond the shelter of their car, something was lurking, waiting, just waiting. "Mom?" Jacob's voice broke through her rising panic. "Can we go home? I don't like it here." "I know, sweetie, just hold on." But deep down, she grasped the truth that hung heavy between them. This was not just a storm to escape from. Something was watching, waiting in the darkness, and their fight for survival had only just begun. "Mom, what if we're too late?" said Emily, barely above a whisper. That question cut deeper than the shadows around them. A breath hissed in. The answer felt too close, and as the last remaining hope slipped from Sarah's grasp, the engine's absence echoed with a finality that sunk deep into the damp earth of the forest. With the oppressive silence closing in tighter, she felt it, that prickling sensation of eyes on her, the weight of unseen dread pressing down. How long until Mr. Thompson found them? And what else was lingering, waiting for the cover of darkness to strike? And Mom? Jacob's small voice trembled, igniting a flicker of dread in her heart. The sound of footsteps, wet and heavy, began to crunch through the leaves just outside the car. Was it him? Or something else entirely? Get ready, she whispered, desperation clawing at her throat. And the truth sank in: what lay beyond the car was far worse than she could ever imagine. The crunching grew louder, a relentless march of sound that made Sarah's heart race like a wild, caged animal. Each step outside seemed to echo in her ears, a maddening reminder that something was just beyond the glass, hidden in the dark. She strained to listen, her breath coming in quick, shallow gasps. "Mom, I can't breathe," Jacob whispered, his hand slick and trembling in hers. "Just a little longer," she promised, her own voice wavering. The rain pounded against the car, but she could feel the chill of a different kind of fear pressing against her, an icy breath from the woods beyond, wrapping around them like the grip of a ghost. Then, without warning, a loud thud resonated outside, shaking the vehicle slightly. It was followed by a low growl, a sound that didn't belong to any beast she could name. Emily whimpered, small and helpless, her eyes wide with unspoken terror. "Please don't," Sarah murmured, though she wasn't sure who she was pleading to, the entity lurking outside or the fate that awaited them both. Suddenly, the whispered plea returned, but it was amplified, reverberating off the trees. "Help me, please." A chill spread down Sarah's spine. This was no ordinary plea for assistance. There was something sinister woven into those words, something unholy. She urged her children, pressing her palm against Jacob's mouth to stifle his whimper. The footsteps circled the car now, creating an unsettling rhythm that clashed with their racing hearts. Mud squelched underfoot, ripping at the fragile threads of sanity left within Sarah. She turned slowly toward the window, every muscle tensed like a pulled bowstring, ready to snap. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the night, and for that brief moment, she saw it, a shadow darting past the trees, a face half hidden in peeling bark and twisted branches. She couldn't see it clearly, but its presence shone too vividly in the flash, a dark parody of a man. "Mom! What is that?" Emily screamed, fear spilling over as the reality of their situation slammed into her. "Whatever it is, it's not real." "It can't be real," Sarah muttered, her palms still pressed against Jacob's mouth. And then, silence, an eerie, unnatural silence that swallowed the world outside. The steady drumming of the rain and the distant rumble of thunder faded into a dreadful quiet, leaving only the muffled whimpers of her children. Jacob's grip tightened. He was terrified, just like her. "What happens now?" "Now we wait," she replied, a thin veneer of calm stretched over her panic. But the waiting turned excruciating. Every second ticked away with the weight of impending doom, and Sarah couldn't help but feel they were being assessed, hunted. Suddenly a loud banging erupted against the side of the car. The sound rattled her to the core. It was as if something was testing their defenses. "Open the door!" came a deep rasp, mingling with the rain. "Let me in!" Panic surged through her. "No!" she cried, a reflex born from terror. "Mom! What's happening?" Emily sobbed, her small voice barely carrying over the pounding rain. Just then, Sarah felt a sharp tug on the door handle. It jiggled violently as something on the other side wrenched at it with growing frustration. The sound of metal scraping against metal sent a fresh wave of dread washing over her. "What if it gets in?" Jacob's voice was a hollow echo, vibrating with the kind of fear that wraps around you tightly, squeezing the breath from your lungs. "Then we fight," she whispered, although her heart knew just how helpless they truly were. The door rattled again, louder this time, as if the thing outside was determined to breach their sanctuary. The identity of their tormentor slithered into her mind. Mr. Thompson. Was it him, or was it something far more sinister? "What do we do?" Emily whimpered, tightening her grip around her brother. In a moment of desperation, Sarah turned to their faces, framed in the dim light of the dying dashboard. "We stay together," she insisted. No matter what, but the creature on the other side wasn't finished. The handle twisted again, the wood creaked ominously, and the voice returned, low and oily, "Please help me." The plea no longer felt just wrong, it felt like bait, a lure to draw them into the abyss of hidden horrors. With another crash, the door rattled so hard it might break. Sarah's mind raced. Could they hold on long enough? As the pressure mounted, she dared to glance out the window once more, and there it was, hovering, its near-human face twisted into a grotesque smile that sent chills racing down her spine. It beckoned to her, eyes gleaming with the dark promise of chaos. "Mom?" The voice sent her heart plunging. No escape anywhere. Just beyond that door lay a nightmare that would refuse to let them go. And what would it take to free them from this curse? The grip of fear closed tighter around her throat as the door creaked precariously, the storm outside a whisper against the impending horror. Was salvation truly out of reach, or was something even worse crawling among the shadows of the trees? The rain seemed to drum a dirge now, each drop a countdown to inevitable doom. Sarah's breath quickened. The thing outside was no longer just trying to get in, it was calculating, watching. Jacob's small fingers trembled against her palm, squeezing like he was afraid she might let go. "Mom, please." His voice cracked, thin and desperate, piercing through the thick fog of dread that had settled around them. The pressure on the handle intensified. Every shake was a warning, a promise of violence if they dared to defy its demands. Sarah felt a primal instinct clawing at her insides, urging her to run, to scream, to do anything but sit still. Yet here they were, held captive by fear and the weight of that sinister smile still haunting her vision. "Keep quiet," she hissed, glancing again to the window, her resolve cracking. But there was no one there at that moment. The shadow had retreated, swallowed by the darkness, yet she could still feel it, an invisible weight pressing down on them, suffocating. Then the door groaned against the pressure, a feeble gust countered by something much bigger than the car. What could it be? Her heart pounded like a war drum, each beat echoing the thoughts unspoken. Should she try to drive away? The engine wouldn't start, not in this storm. Their isolation felt complete, as if they had been marooned on a treacherous island with death lurking just beyond the tree line. Emily suddenly wailed, her voice shrill and cutting through the tension like glass shattering. "I want to go home." "Shoo. Just as shitch," Sarah urged, feeling the pull of desperation wrap tighter around her throat. It had to be just a trick, some cruel game. They were fine. They were safe. Just after she whispered that silent affirmation, a series of sharp raps echoed on the hood of the car. They all flinched, instinctively pressing against one another, hearts racing. "Open the door." The voice called again, more insistent, more demanding. The pleas twisted into a cacophony of maddening whispers, echoing their worst fears. "Let me in, please." It wasn't just a disembodied request anymore, it became a maddening chorus, an emotional assault from the very world beyond. Sarah clenched her teeth, trying to drown it out, but it reverberated in her skull, gnawing away at the remnants of her sanity. "Mom. I see something." Jacob's eyes widened, pointing toward the shadows outside. There it was, creeping forward in the flickering light, a form forming out of the mist. It moved almost fluidly, blurring the lines of body and shadow. The figure paused, its grin stretching impossibly wide, revealing teeth too sharp and eyes too bright, almost glowing in the dark. "Help me." It rasped again, the words twisting around a sound that took a moment to register. It was laughter, a hollow, inhuman sound that sent a jolt of ice through Sarah's veins. "Don't look," she shouted, preparing to shield Jacob from the sight, but it was too late. His gaze was locked on it, fear mingling with fascination. "What is it?" he breathed, incredulous, as if drawn in by some magnetic force. "Close your eyes. Both of you," she ordered, her voice rising with panic. The laughter intensified, mingling with the sound of the storm, drowning out every other thought she had held onto. Lightning cracked again, illuminating the figure just enough to etch the horror into her mind. A woman, once beautiful, now a distorted nightmare wearing clothes that weren't for the living, set against the swirling darkness. The ground shook with thunder, and beneath the terrible spectacle, Sarah knew what lay behind it: madness, despair, and a choice. The thing pressed closer, its face moving into the light, and in a moment of unbearable clarity, Sarah realized that it wasn't he just looking for entry, it was looking for an invitation. "Look away!" she screamed, as the figure stretched a hand, fingers stretching and bending in unnatural angles as it beckoned. But the night had other plans. Suddenly, she spotted a flash of movement on the periphery, a surge of shadow darting behind the car, a message skittering away unnoticed. Slipping into the depths of the trees, could there be others out there? The thought consumed her, forcing her to look away from the horror before them. Mom?" Emily's voice trembled, a delicate whisper curated from the depths of terror. But Sarah didn't respond. Not because she didn't want to, but because even she couldn't gauge the truth anymore: who or what was coming for them. Would this night ever end? As the darkness pressed in tighter, she felt suffocated by the weight of their reality. Because beyond that door, amid the crashing storm, lay the sweetest lie they ever believed. "Open the door." The voice demanded once more, sharper now, entwined with malevolence. And Sarah, torn, knew she had a choice to make. What would she sacrifice to protect her children, to keep them from the encroaching madness? As the darkness pulsated closer, she steeled herself for the decision that could seal their fate, for despair demanded payment, and it was time to pay. The rain lashed against the car, its rhythm a chaotic symphony paired with the frantic pounding of Sarah's heart. The thing outside was now a tangible force, an unholy presence that loomed just beyond the metal. With each thunderclap, Sarah felt the crackle of energy in the air, as if the storm itself were warning her of the fate that awaited them. "Mom, I can't." Jacob whimpered. His eyes darted, frightened, searching for something in the shadows. "What's happening?" "Please, just hold on to me," Sarah whispered, clutching his tiny hand tighter. She could feel his pulse racing, mirroring her own. Emily had gone eerily silent, her small body curled against the seat, face hidden in her hands. A soft whisper accompanied the throbbing pressure on the door. "Let me in, just let me in." The request was laced with mockery, a vile twist of words that pressed against Sarah's sanity. Her mind screamed to flee, but where could they run? The storm was an unyielding beast, trapping them in this metal coffin. Suddenly, she heard rustling from beyond the shadows, a swift movement echoing through the pounding rain. The laughter stopped, replaced by something more sinister, a low growl that snaked through the foliage. Something else was out there, hidden within the depths of the darkness, watching, waiting. "What is it?" Jacob's voice broke through her thoughts, filled with horror and confusion. In that moment, everything felt like a twisted nightmare. A low hum began to echo around them, vibrating in the air, creeping into her ears and settling into her bones. The branches outside whispered in response, an ancient language of dread that seemed to sigh with knowing. "Look away," she directed, heart racing. She felt compelled to look out, to see what was prowling near them. But she fought the urge, trying desperately to remember why curiosity led to ruin. "Mom," Jacob's voice quivered, his eyes wide, "I saw it. It has hands like claws." The growling grew closer, a chorus of gravelly voices joining the first, echoing through the trees. The tension intensified like a taut string, ready to snap. "Please let me in." The figure's voice rang out again, more desperate now, creating a chilling urgency that brought fresh panic to Sarah's chest. "What do you want?" she yelled, hands trembling as she gripped the steering wheel, eyes darting between the darkness outside and her children's terrified faces. "What do you want from us?" "Mom!" Jacob cried, pointing again at the darkness just beyond the shroud of rain. Shadows slithered closer, twisting and contorting unnaturally. "They want you to let them in." A sickening realization bubbled in Sarah's throat. It wasn't just the female figure anymore, she sensed other things lurking just beyond, shadows of despair, sorrow, and insatiable hunger. Each moment felt like a countdown, but she didn't know to what. The metallic rattle of the car door sent a fresh wave of terror through her body. Breathe. Just breathe. Without warning, something clawed at the windows, nails scraping against glass, sharp as shattered dreams. Jacob gasped, his grip tightening around her arm. Emily's soft whimper cut through the night, heavy with despair. "Let us," and the voice was different now, layered with husky tones and unnatural harmonies. It felt like dozens of souls were calling, each one begging for release, pulling at the strings of Sarah's heart. "Close your eyes," she ordered as an unseen force rattled the very core of her being. The air thickened around them, a bitter taste flooding Sarah's mouth. She could feel the chill seeping in through their breaths, an electric anticipation building, but then, in the chaos, a glimmer of truth emerged through the fog. Did the entities outside even want merely entry? Or was what they sought much worse? "Please." Emily's voice was quaking now, and Sarah could barely contain her own fear rising like bile. A loud crack broke through the roiling storm, and all at once, lightning illuminated the forest, a fleeting glimpse of what was waiting for them. Twisted figures scattered along the tree line, their features blurred and grotesque. Then came the chilling realization they weren't just watching. They were waiting for a decision. Sarah thought of the choices laid before her, safety or surrender, silence or screams, life or something far more sinister. And as if answering her silent plea, the winds shifted. The growls morphed into an ominous chant of her name. Sarah, let us in. What kind of horrors awaited them if she did? The rain began to slow, but the heartbeat of dread quickened. Would the deepest terror she feared offer them salvation? Could she risk everything on a single choice? As shadows reached for them, the storm outside whispered its sinister promise. The chilling wind shrieked outside, a feral voice beckoning, twining around the car like snake around prey. Sarah's mind raced, torn between dread and a strange pull toward the curses lurking just outside. She knew they wanted something, but the thought of giving in felt like laying bare her flesh to a ravenous beast. "Mom, what do we do?" Jacob's voice was barely audible above the pounding of the rain and the guttural whispers. His innocence pierced her like a knife, reminding her of the responsibility she bore. "Stay close," she murmured, trembling but trying to maintain a facade of calm. They needed to be proactive, to protect themselves, but how? The figures in the shadows were growing bolder, pressing closer, drawn by the very essence of fear that emanated from the car's interior. Suddenly, another clap of thunder split the night, and it was followed by a deafening silence. The growling ceased, and an unnerving clarity washed over her. Then came a soft, almost pleading voice, more human than the others, a voice that gnawed at her heart. "Sarah, you can save us. Let us." And the false promises collided with her instincts, reeling her in. Images of blood and sacrifice played in her mind. Would opening the door unleash something worse than death? They were trapped in this nightmare, and the decision felt heavy, an anchor pulling her into darkness. "Mom, I can see them. Look!" Jacob shouted, pointing again, fear etched in every line of his small face. Against her better judgment, Sarah turned toward the window. The rain parted for just a heartbeat, and for that fleeting moment, she saw them. Pale and twisted, faces crossed with despair and longing. Their eyes glowed, deep wells filled with an emptiness that promised nothing but anguish. "Please." The chorus grew louder, merging into a cacophony that clawed its way into her brain. "Let us in." Emily sobbed softly, her small body curling more tightly into a ball. Panic flared inside Sarah, a fiery urgency that made her heart race. One decision could mean freedom or collapse, but why did it feel like the wrong choice was waiting, ready to spring? "Listen!" she shouted, summoning every ounce of strength. "We're not afraid of you. We want to let you in." She gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles turned white, praying that defiance would keep her children safe. The shadows recoiled momentarily, their whispers escalating into a shrill wail, thundering through the night air. For just a moment, silence reigned, but the oppressive atmosphere didn't dissipate. Instead, a tangible tension hung in the air, as if the world itself was bracing for what would come next. "Mom," Jacob whispered, trembling as the shadows seemed to weave together, forming a new and more menacing figure. "What if they don't go away?" She felt the weight of his fear settle like a stone in her gut. The decision loomed heavy, grotesque in its implications. Sarah's mind spiraled as a storm brewed inside her. Should she risk everything? Hope to protect them while slowly unraveling, then came the sensation that they weren't alone in their plight. Something unknown lurked behind them, a presence stirring in the back seat. She turned, her breath hitching in her throat. "Get out!" A voice hissed, not from the shadows outside, but within the car itself. Heart pounding, Sarah's gaze zeroed in on the sudden movement in the rearview mirror. An unfamiliar figure, shrouded in shadow but unmistakably human, was smiling back at her. "Don't listen to them, Sarah," it hissed, voice dripping with malice. "They'll only bring you despair." Fear gripped her heart, tethering it with icy fingers. Who was this new threat? The rain hammered down again, drowning the whispers, blending horrors with the chaos. What had she just allowed into their sanctuary? Just when she thought she understood the nightmare, the storm outside began to rise in intensity. Crackling energy coursed through the air, and thunder rumbled a warning. Sarah realized with mounting dread that the true horror was just beginning. Would the new presence become their savior or a deeper damnation? The atmosphere shifted, electric with dread. The figure in the back seat leaned closer, a twisted grin revealing teeth too sharp, too white against its shadowy form. Sarah's breath hitched, her mind reeling. She was acutely aware of nothing but its gaze, fixed and unyielding, soaking through her like the rain. "Mom!" Jacob cried, his voice fracturing into shrieks. The outside whispers swelled, drawing the shadows closer as if they thrived on the pale light of fear. She wanted to scream, to toss the belt aside and throw open the door, but she held herself stiff as stone. "Please don't," Emily whimpered, burying her face in her brother's jacket. The warmth of their innocence sang in stark contrast to the malevolence encroaching on them. "Kids, I need you to listen to me very carefully," she choked out, forcing herself to break from the hypnotic pull of the figure. "Whatever happens, you keep your eyes on me. Don't look at it." "Mom!" Jacob's voice tightened, a mule of panic. Its eyes. The pull to turn and confront what was lurking at her back was overpowering, but she gritted her teeth, fingers digging into her palms. "Look at me," she commanded, louder this time, desperate to stave off the mounting terror. Suddenly, the figure started to speak again. "You know I'm the only one who can save you. Let them in. They're only after what you owe. What do I owe?" She croaked, heart drumming in her chest as she glanced through the fogged rearview mirror. The shadows outside writhed, inching closer, greedy steel to a magnet. "Oh, you know. You heard the tales. They're beings from true darkness. The debt was created long ago. They seek to collect, or take what's precious." The rain picked up again, slashing at the windows like desperate fingers, each drop a reminder of their impending doom. If she let them in, they'd feast on what remained of their souls. If she didn't, would the entity shift its focus to her children? A sudden piercing wail erupted, sending a surge of static terror through her veins. "Stop!" yelled Sarah, voice raw. "Shut up. All of you. None of you can have them." And then she felt something slippery crawling down her spine, the flicker of a warning. The frightened intensity of her children's faces sent ice through her chest. "Mom, what do I have to do?" Jacob's voice quaked, sweat glistening on his brow. "Just trust me," she shouted, fighting a tide of despair as pain blossomed in her head. There was a degree of desperation she had never faced before, the weight of sacrifice looming just beyond sight. "Do you really think you can stop it?" The voice from behind sneered. Look around. It's too late for you. A roar of thunder struck then, drowning out reason. The car trembled as if the very earth was shaking beneath them. She could feel the energy rising, a dark pulse feeding off fear. The shadows pressed closer until they cracked the glass with icy breaths, whispers flooding the air. Let us in, let us save you, they pleaded, the sinister harmony hypnotic, filled with anguish. Get away! Sarah shouted, clutching the steering wheel, adrenaline coursing through her. The very car shuddered in protest. Mom, I can't breathe. Jacob gasped, and she turned to see him struggling, eyes wide with terror. Stay with me, Jacob. Hold Emily tight. She demanded, every muscle taut with urgency. The new presence was gaining strength, she could feel it, churning and coiling around them, demanding surrender. Suddenly, a sharp pain lanced through her hand as the figure in the back seat grasped it. The pressure was relentless. You have two choices, Sarah. In that moment, she realized the truth needed revealing. Every choice would expect payment. Two choices, she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper, as horror clawed for control. What are they? As the shadows danced, the chaos erupted. One final truth hung heavy in the air: which choice would keep her children safe? With a sickening twist, the weight pressed down, leaving her gasping for clarity. It was a gamble, her sanity against their lives. What if the horrors outside were not the worst? After all? The truth lay on the other side, waiting. The darkness encroached, a sweet poison that wrapped around Sarah and her children, a shroud of dread thicker than the rain pounding against the car. A voice her own whispered for clarity, for a way out of the chaos. It had become a suffocating reality, and Sarah could feel the weight of it pushing down as if the very roof were about to cave in. Choose, Sarah, the figure hissed from the back seat, its voice an unsettling blend of promises and threats. She felt its grip tighten around her wrist, cold and unyielding. Get away! She shouted, yanking free, her heart hammering in solid rhythm with fear. You won't have them. Let us in, the shadows whispered, now a chorus, a malicious lullaby that threatened to unravel her sanity. Save yourself. Save them. Mom, I'm scared. Jacob cried, his small voice cracking, pulling her back into the reality of her children, pressing against her like frail anchors fighting a storm. Their fragile hands clutched her tightly, and she fought against the rising tide of dread, struggling to remain their shield. Listen to me. Sarah shouted, forcing a new resolve down her throat. We're stronger than whatever this is. We stand together, no matter what. But doubt clawed at her heart. Blood was debt, and she felt the truth of it press against her soul. Help me, the voice from outside begged, ebbing and flowing with the rain. Release yourself and oh. She screamed, as though her refusal could shatter the grip of despair around them. Her children were not sacrifices, they were her lifeblood. Suddenly, out of the pulse of shadows, the grotesque figure that haunted their rearview mirror thrust its face close enough for her to see the hunger clinging to its features. One must pay, Sarah. What will it be? Their innocence or your sacrifice? The words hissed through the air like burning smoke. Mom, don't listen. Emily whimpered, her small body shaking like a leaf caught in a gale. Please, don't let them in. A loud crash reverberated through the metal shell of the car, sending a splinter of terror racing through her. The shadows were battering against the windows now, like frenzied waves crashing against the shore. Their wailing cries formed into a single message: let us in. Another crash echoed, louder than thunder, making the car tremble beneath them. Sarah felt the air shift, churning thick with malevolence and expectation. Please help me, the pleading voice twisted her heart, blurring the lines of hope and despair. Let us save you from this torment. The figure in the back seat hissed, its grin widening, eyes glinting with a sickening hunger, urging her to succumb. Then all at once, a flash of memory crystallized in her mind, her own childhood, filled with laughter, a mother's warmth, the unwavering bonds that held them safe against the world. She felt the weight of those memories surge through her, igniting a fierce flame within. "No!" she cried. "I won to pay with their lives. I would rather sacrifice myself." With that defining moment, she turned, glaring into the face of the twisted figure pressing from the back seat. "I choose to protect them. Nothing will take my children." The rain ceased for an excruciating heartbeat, the skies respectively darkening. And then, another clap of thunder crashed through the air, shattering the silence as the shadows screamed in fury, the echoes of their disappointment swirling like a storm through her mind. In that blinding moment, Sarah grasped her children's hands tighter, feeling their warmth, their heartbeat against the coldness of the night. "Hold on!" she yelled, her voice erupting like a battle cry as she twisted in her seat, ready to confront hell itself. Suddenly, a deafening silence enveloped them, the car vibrating with unseen energy. The shadows shrank back, the sinister figures recoiled, slipping through the cracks of the world they inhabited, filled with malice and threats thrown back by the sheer strength of love. "Mom!" Jacob shouted, the weight of their frantic desperation echoing in his voice. But Sarah's resolve faltered, quickly replaced by clarity. She could feel the presence dissipating, the malevolence loosening its grip as she held steady against the lurking dread. "Together." The word hung in the air outside like a lifeline. It was like a dam breaking. The shadows clung to her darkness, retreating back into the void from which they had emerged. The rain returned to a gentle patter, splattering harmlessly on the car roof, sound fading as clarity washed over her like warm sunlight cutting through a storm. She reached for the ignition, but the engine sputtered, refusing to ignite. However, she felt the urge within her strengthen, fueling her resolve even more. It wouldn't matter. They were alive. She had saved them. "Just hold on, kids." Her voice was fierce, filled with more warmth than she thought she could muster. She turned the key once more, and this time the engine roared to life, the headlights flashing in the thick darkness. "Go, Mom!" Emily squealed, excitement surging through her small form. Sarah pressed the gas as the car lurched forward, crashing through the damp foliage, branches whipping against the sides. They burst through the trees, out of the woods and into the open road, the darkness receding in the rearview mirror. With every ounce of strength, she drove, pushing through the night and the storm, each pulse of adrenaline fueled by nothing but love. The world ahead shimmered with the promise of dawn, the fight for their future shining bright against the blackened sky. Sarah couldn't look back. The past was gone, and the nightmare had withered in the light of their survival. As the sun peeked over the horizon, the clouds broke apart, illuminating their path forward. "We're safe now," she said softly, a promise stitched into her words. "Yes, Mom." Emily breathed, her voice a melody of relief laced with gratitude. And together, they drove toward the promise of a new day, leaving the darkness far behind. Don't miss stories like this. Subscribe immediately to our channel so you don't miss the next exclusive tales waiting to unfold. Smash that like button now to help feed the algorithm that fuels our passion for storytelling. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. We want to hear everything you think. And share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see how far love can go in the face of horror. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.